And I think I'll go. I don't know. That was so wet by this rain. Anyways, here it is. Walk and talk number 2. I was starting to tell a story in my last walk about when I was out there homeless and how I survived one of the worst days. It was freezing cold, and I had already slept in the parking lot at Lowe's on a little island under an umbrella with my daughter, and we kind of had an argument, and I left and walked from Brunswick to Portland, which I think is like 38 miles or something like that. And then it rained all day. I crossed over to the highway where you're not supposed to hitchhike because there was no traffic. I think it was a Sunday. And on Route 1, there's no traffic. And I got to the first bus place in Freeport, and there was no buses that day. So I had left all my stuff behind. I was cold, I was wet, I was miserable, and it was gonna snow the next morning. But so I crossed over the highway only to find that there was no ramp to get down on the highway there. So I went down through somebody's driveway, nice big house, and hoped they didn't come out and shoot me. And then I went to the highway where you're not supposed to be a pedestrian on that highway because it was starting to get dark. And trying to get to the highway from these people's property, I had to go through a big ditch and all kinds of stuff. So it was a hell of an adventure, to say the least. And then when I walked until I didn't think I could walk anymore, I was soaking in the rain, cars splashing me as they go by on the highway. And when I almost made it to Portland, somebody picked me up and gave me a ride, some older gentleman, which was really, really appreciated, believe me. And he dropped me off downtown. I walked around, and I had $5 somebody had given me. Oh, a police officer in Freeport gave it to me. But anyways, yeah, and another guy bought me a little dollar burger at McDonald's because I wouldn't ask for anything else. But yeah, good people I met along the way. And then when I got here, Pops was in the motel, and I thought, well, I can talk to GA the next day, and I could talk to James because they had a motel room, but I left it because these people were scaring me, but I didn't know anybody else anywhere to go. So I gotta hurry. So I went and called him before my phone died, and I was soaking and freezing, and it was late at night, and luckily I had an umbrella. He says, go stand in the bus thing. My son, John, will pick you up. And John probably drove by a dozen times and didn't pick me up. And I was like, doo-dee-doo-dee-doo. Okay, what do I do? So I left the bus thing, and cold. And then I went and oh, it smells good. Oh yeah, Applebee's. So I went and huddled for a little while by a building. It was cold and the wind was hard. And then after that, I saw some people that I recognized out there. So I walked around with them. They were really obnoxious that night for some reason. I don't know why. But Um, then they walked over by the shelter, and I saw Billy Joe. He's like 6'5", black, young man, about 40 something, I don't know, 40ish. And my daughter knew him and introduced me. And I said, Billy Joe, he was at the shelter. I said, could you do me a big favor? I said, if I go hide around the corner, will you bring a blanket out, sneak a blanket out to me? Because during COVID, since I had never been at the shelter, I was not allowed to go to the shelter. Really nice, huh? So he did. And I asked him, would he just wrap himself around me for a minute to keep me warm, because I was just shaking and soaking. And he literally, I kept telling him after this, I said, Billy Joe, thank you. You saved my life that night. And he says, well, you saved my life. I said, what do you mean? He says, it was dang cold out there. I said, yeah, but that's leftover from the storm. He said, yeah, but you had a place to go in the shelter. I didn't have any place to go in the shelter. I said, you could have went back and stayed warm all night, but instead, I said, you stayed out here and you kept me warm and dry. And he's like, well, yeah, but you still saved my life. And I was like, okay, whatever. But, yeah, and there was a lady, Joanne Arnold, who would take donations anonymously. She called her group Anonymous. And she would buy stuff for the homeless and bring it down there. And that's how I got some clothes sometimes, which were priceless. And then also, I had a pair of socks from her, from Anonymous, in my backpack. And that was all I had. That was all I had in that horrible day and night. So I waited till I sat down, huddled in a building that I could tell by looking in the window that nobody was there. And they weren't going to open the store the next day. So, yeah, I realized that, I had no place to go. I'm going to stop for a minute. So I literally put on those socks between me and my soggy boots. And that was like the only comfort I had besides Billy Joe. And he was a pain in the butt all night, but nonetheless, I survived it. So anyways, that's how it went. The next morning, I got up and he went on his way, and I went to the Preble Street Resource Center and Learning Collaborative, they called it. And because I knew they would let me sleep in there for a couple hours, and my face was bright red. It would just happen to be the day that the time had changed, so I had an extra hour to wait, which was really no fun, freezing out there, shivering, amongst all the other people doing the same, but I was soaking wet. And they let me sleep in there and then helped me get back into a motel room. But I left because I was afraid, and there was certain reasons why I was afraid, but I won't go into that right now because that's a long story. But yeah, that's how it goes. And I'm only going to record half my walk, and now I'm turning around to go back.